Welcome to Integrating AI, Tools and Strategies for Modern Businesses. Learn about these three key concepts as we navigate a conversation between Arie and Mike from Fusion Computing Limited.
Hey, Arie.
Hey, Mike.
Thanks for joining me for Shoot the Shot number 2.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this.
What are we talking about today?
I think today we're talking about AI, using AI properly, how to pick an AI to use in your business.
It's a really good topic because what we're seeing is kind of across industries, people are using AI, whether you know it or not. Some of your staff are. There's also some element that are afraid or scared of this revolution. But I think of it like when we got cell phones or Google, and it made us much more productive. I see it as tooling in that way. What's your take? What have you seen success with?
There's different levels of success because AI is just new. AI is still new. We're still trying to figure out what does it do. But I think that the big question we're seeing on a regular basis is how do I use it? What should I be using? What makes sense for me? There's so many things being thrown at us right now in terms of AI is the future. AI is what I should be using in order to improve my business, reduce some of my overheads. My next hire will be an AI agent. Like the questions around that, like how do I set this up? Does it actually work? That's what we're getting and seeing right now.
But still early days, and these
Oh, yeah.
questions are people trying to find their footing, and it's really interesting. To the point about AI agents as employees, we have some AI agents that are effectively employees, and we continue to hire real people at the same time and think about human in the loop as a critical component. And it really truly is. These are tools, not replacements for people in any way, shape, or form. And if you've used any of these tools, you can appreciate why that's true. What tool do you see the most use with yourself personally right now?
On a day-to-day basis, I'm using Microsoft Copilot. It is, well, it's OpenAI based. It does have its access to my emails. It has access to Teams. It has access to SharePoint. It has access as to like with specific security rails around it because we can define those. So if I'm looking for information that we discussed that had come up months ago, I can ask Copilot, hey, what about that meeting I had with Mike 2 months ago where we discussed AI? I can pull up the transcript of this call. I can ask Copilot to pull it up. And I can ask it a question about the transcript as well. So that's what I'm using on a daily basis to ask most of my questions. I am using a couple of other tools. I do use ChatGPT for more general things because it does keep the data that I feed it. So I'm not feeding it client data. I'm not feeding it personal data. I'm not feeding it anything identifiable whatsoever. We also have an AI agent that we use that is designed specifically for MSPs. We're using Zoic, and that has access to our data as well, has access to our PSA. In time, we expect that it's going to do incredible AI things, but it also functions as an AI agent that I can ask questions of that has access to that set of information too.
It's super fascinating. And it's also fascinating the differences in the way that people use AI. The way that I use AI is quite different from the way that you would use AI. I have a Copilot license as well, and I find it very limited for my use case. And then I have a paid ChatGPT where it's safe to share personal information. And on that paid ChatGPT, I have basically my entire scope, and I'm using MCP servers or connectors to access Microsoft data and other data. I find that to be much better for my use case. Now, it's interesting because your use case is in technical operations. My
Yep.
use case is in business management, building proposals, working on communications, and leveraging opinions and to make decision making. You're more trying to develop a technical solution or in that communication world. And so the
Yeah.
use cases vary a little bit. There's
Mhm.
there's other programs on the market as well, and you showed me this great slide. It's not just OpenAI and Microsoft in this space. There's others in this space too, and some of the big players are interesting going from left to right here. Google is a major player, and if you're in the Google
Huge.
workspace, arena, or if you're looking for some of the features where Google is more advanced, like for example, with the VO video generation, it's a really powerful tool. I really like the OpenAI platform. That's the one that I'm using. They've attached it to Copilot for the Microsoft suite. That's really interesting because that's exactly what we have internally. Instead of Whisper Flow, we have the MSP centric Zoic agent that does things in our PSA, our RMM tools, our business management and technical management tools is very powerful. But there's other major players as well. Like software developers love this Claude from Anthropic. They love the idea of it. There's a function there called Claude Code, and it's used a lot for vibe coding and for software developers. I saw a stat this morning that 30% of the code being written now is by AI, which
That's
is
insane number. Yeah.
yeah, a totally insane number. And
Yeah.
so, and I can appreciate that because, I have a
Yes.
cursor license and I can see that happen. But, like Claude Code really makes the whole thing much more seamless and like to the point where I'm developing complex prompts in ChatGPT and handing it to Claude Code to go and build something and getting something back that is feature rich and not necessarily ready for production, but has the features that are needed and is ready for that next step. Now, secure this code. Now, add a menu. Now, do the next thing. The Llama models from Meta are quite interesting because they're open source and they're being used a lot in industry for inference. So they're being extended or scaffolded in various ways. Some of the scaffolding that we're seeing is for financial firms or trading firms, in construction for CAD design, generally for chatbots of various specific types. So, you can go and Google Llama if you want to look online and see what those look like yourself. It's been really interesting. Have you seen anything else on the left side of that diagram that is interesting?
I can honestly say I haven't seen much that's on the right side of this diagram. It really depends on the workspace you're in and your use case. If you're using Microsoft, your business building, it makes sense to use Copilot. If you're using Google Workspace, it makes sense to use Gemini and Google Workspace. The bottom line is, what are you trying to use AI for? And then picking the right thing. Maybe within somebody's work, they'll be a lot more familiar with an individual one of these than I am right now.
Coming back to a cybersecurity point of view, what needs to be done to secure these things? Like we talked about how you can share personal information with the free ChatGPT, but it's safe to do so with Copilot. Maybe it's safe to do so on the paid GPTs. But what does that look like? Like, what considerations do you have from a cybersecurity IT perspective when someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm going to implement Claude Code or Google Copilot," for examples?
Absolutely. There need to be rails around what information are we sharing with any AI. Copilot is an easy example because we have existing policies on how do we secure Copilot, and that's a conversation that we have before we set up Copilot for any of our clients. The default setting in Copilot, if you don't set up security for it, is that everyone in your organization has access to every bit of information within your organization. So we must put rails around that before we license it. Even like before, or we talk about licensing it, we need to talk about, okay, well, do we want to increase our security beyond a more generic setting of people all can access things in Copilot that they already have access to? That's one that we set up a lot when we're setting up Copilot, but we can add more security than that. A key consideration is, what access should AI have to my data? What access should users have to my data? And like making sure that the leakage doesn't occur or one way or the other. Like, are my users providing the AI with too much information? Well, that ties into which AI am I using? Am I using an AI that I should be using? If there's a chance that my users are going to provide it with more information than we should, and what AI should I be using if there's a chance that it may give somebody more information than they should have access to? So having those discussions before implementation is key.
I agree. I want to talk a little bit more about that leakage problem. And maybe you could stop your screen share as well.
Sure.
I think that this leakage problem exists whether you do or you don't, because if you address the fact that your staff are using AI, then you might get a handle on this problem. If
Yep.
you don't address it, then for sure you're leaking data. You're probably leaking significant data. And I may be able to go to my ChatGPT and ask questions about your business that sound like, what are the top 10 salaries, and receive a reply that's actually accurate because that information leaked through. I probably have to do some prompt engineering to make that happen.
Sure.
From my point of view, it's not a huge ask. I think that's a really interesting point of awareness for people. Not just awareness, but risk mitigation discussion. If you look at the NIST AI risk mitigation framework, there's a lot of discussion about data leakage and about how to go about preserving that data and how to identify when data leaks. I think it's a key point. Are there other major considerations in AI adoption within organizations?
There ought to be, because security needs to come first. Beyond that, like usability, what's the use case, which we've touched upon, securing the infrastructure, which we've touched upon.
I think training and enablement is really important. Also, a roadmap or a plan for the long term, because it moves so quickly, because agents can take scope, because there's other possibilities, but also because there's like this inverted pyramid of LLMs that are out there. At the top, you have the ones we talk about, like the Gemini, the Copilot, the ChatGPT. And as you get more focused, you get into like, we have this MS, there's one for Salesforce, there's one for Notion, there's one for everyone. And those ones have different capabilities that are useful for different use cases. I think it's really important for organizations to really look at what that use case looks like. Don't fall into the trap of having 1,000 tools, but really own the tools that you do choose. Look into the technology MCP, or the Model Context Protocol, in order to be able to call custom tooling from the existing models supported by ChatGPT, Copilot. Any final thoughts on this topic?
Ensuring that the security posture is set up properly before implementation and on an ongoing basis during implementation. Make sure that, how can I tell if that leakage exists? How can I tell what the usage looks like? What am I doing in agents? Am I keeping things up to date? I think that those are significant considerations. Making sure on an ongoing basis, is this the right thing for me to use? That makes sense for any tool we're using. And I mean, at Fusion, we're constantly reviewing, are we using the right tools for anything? So that we're having this discussion about like which AI tool makes sense to use. And we both have different use cases. It makes sense to have that discussion.
We're doing this a lot in industry. Reach out to us, have that discussion with us. Let us give you some more customized advice, and let's talk about the automation journey. Thank you so much, Arie, for joining us, and everyone else out there in YouTube land. Looking forward to the next one. Bye for now.